Hi guys, welcome to our daily encounter. In Psalm 16, starting in verse 7, it says, I will bless the Lord who has counseled me. Indeed, my mind instructs me in the night. I have set the Lord continually before me. Because he is at my right hand, I will not be shaken. Therefore, my heart is glad and my glory rejoices. My flesh also will dwell securely. For you will not abandon my soul to Sheol, nor will you allow your Holy One to undergo decay. You will make known to me the path of life. In your presence is fullness of joy. In your right hand there are pleasures forever. And the Apostle Peter, in Acts chapter 2, relates this portion of this psalm to Jesus Christ, especially the part about you will not allow your Holy One to undergo decay. And he makes the point that David, David's the one that penned this psalm. His body did undergo decay, and his tomb was there present with them at the time that Peter was speaking. And so he says that couldn't have been talking about David. It must be looking forward to someone else. And of course, he would say that it was alluding to Jesus Christ. Because of the resurrection, his body did not undergo decay. And you can read this portion of scripture with Jesus in mind and definitely see some parallels there and some things that tie to Jesus' own experience. But the portion we want to focus on for our devotion today is the parts that deal with the presence of God. Here the psalmist says in verse 8, I have set the Lord continually before me. Because he is at my right hand, I will not be shaken. The first thing we learn about the presence of God in this portion is that when we set the Lord before us, we know that the Lord is at our right hand, and it keeps us from being shaken. In other words, we can have security when we walk in the presence of the Lord. When we live our lives not thinking about the Lord, distant from the Lord, not really aware of his presence, we get shaken quite a bit. The cares, the concerns, the difficulties that our circumstances oftentimes bring before us, they can shake us to our core. And we can also oftentimes feel uneasy, unsteady as we try to traverse these difficult situations. But when we set the Lord before us, when we walk in the presence of God, when by faith we take the truth that God is with us, that he will never leave us nor forsake us, when we hold on to the truths of Scripture that talk about the Lord being with his people, it protects us from being shaken by our circumstances. Because when we walk close to the Lord, it brings stability to our lives. It says, because he is at my right hand, I will not be shaken. I can't be shaken up by these circumstances. Why? Because the Lord is at my right hand. He's my help. He's my comforter. He's my strength. And therefore, I can get through these difficult circumstances I find myself in. And so that's the first thing that we learned here, is that when we walk in the presence of God, we find strength. But also we find that the presence of God brings joy. In verse 11, it says, you will make known to me the path of life. In your presence is fullness of joy. In your right hand, there are pleasures forever. And of course, if we're looking at that portion as messianic, we could say that Jesus definitely experienced this. After the resurrection, after that portion where it says, nor will you allow your Holy One to undergo decay, you'll make known to me the path of life, that seems to be alluding to Christ's resurrection. And then it says, in your presence is fullness of joy. What did Jesus do after he was resurrected? He ascended into the presence of God and to the right hand of the Father. And it says, in your right hand there are pleasures forever. And so we could think about it in connection to Christ. But those same truths would apply to us as well. We know from experience that in the presence of God, there is fullness of joy. When we walk with the awareness of God's presence, when we're by faith taking hold of the fact that God is with us, that he is present with us everywhere that we go, there's just joy that fills our hearts. There's this awareness of the peace and the love of God and the care of God in our lives. And that brings joy. And when we are at his right hand, there are pleasures forever. So when he's at our right hand, we are not shaken. When we are at his right hand, there are pleasures forever. And so in the Lord, there is not only strength, but there's also pleasure. There's also joy. And these two things kind of interplay with one another. We find out in another portion of scripture where it says, the joy of the Lord is your strength. And so joy leads to strength. Strength can lead to joy. And it can just become this cycle in which we are continually walking with the awareness of being fully supplied with everything that we need to meet the demands of life, and at the same time being filled with joy that the one who supplies us with that strength is with us all the time, and we can enjoy his presence, walk with the awareness of him being with us, and draw close to him in a deep, abiding relationship. And it's a wonderful thing that we get to experience as we cultivate and dig deeper into this wonderful and beautiful relationship we have with God. So hopefully these verses today will all the more want us to draw closer to God, to walk in his presence, to set the Lord before us, to take by faith that he is with us, and draw from that the strength and joy that comes by walking in the awareness of his presence. So here's some things we can reflect on and think about as we do a reading today. With that, guys, I do thank you for watching the video today. Hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.